I want to welcome you to the most remarkable journey you will ever take. We have long wondered about the mysteries behind the resurrection of the dead, or the transformation of human to divine. We have asked ourselves these questions. Why am I human? Where are we going as a human race? Why did God create us? In these next 26 weeks, we're going to learn the answers to these questions. We're also going to learn about the powers that lie within us, that creativity that enables us to prophesy, to heal, and to discern. Our sailing vessel that will take us from earth to the heavens is known and called the Nautilus. If you remember, the sea creature is one which always closes and seals off its chambers as it outgrows it and builds a new one. And we must do the same thing. For we must cease being what we are in order to become something different. And like the Nautilus, we must leave behind our old ideas and concepts. So please join me on this very wondrous journey. I'm your hostess, Elizabeth MacDonald Burrows. Welcome to another journey on board the Nautilus, which takes us from heaven to earth. Last week we finished up with looking at means of having healthier bodies and why we should do this, that it would retard the aging process, that it would aid us in healing, that it would increase our IQ, and reduce pain. So there were many reasons for approaching health and nutrition, not only though from the scientific aspects of what it does for us, but more also because it helps to refine the body. And the refinement of the body means that once that spirit descends to live in embodiment with you, then there is less controversy or war between you and that which is higher. The body does aid us in many ways. Today we're going to look at one of the greatest of all of Jesus's arts. I think the thing that we remember him so much for is for his healing practices. And in today's world, alternative medicine is taking a very strong, is building a very strong foundation for the world of tomorrow. Many people who have gone into medical science to become medical doctors have certainly taken a close look at alternative medicine and alternative health. However, we who may wish to become a healer must by all means come to a realization of our place in society. We do not replace doctors. We do not take people off of their medication. It is for us to work in harmony and to help with medical work, not to deceive it nor to interfere with it. To do so would bring, I'm afraid, the ire of the Medical Association. And also, doctors are important. They have worked very hard to get to where they are, and I've always said that no amount of healing in the world is really going to set our leg. Well, if we break it, if we have a compound break, we need to go and get that set. We can ease our pain, we can endure the setting better, we can heal more rapidly, we can do many things for ourselves. But we are not yet talented enough, nor are our bodies refined enough, that we can build a limb or grow a limb where none exists, or to do such repairs as we might find in broken bones. We can do a lot for ourselves in diseases like cancer and things like that, but it takes a lot of power to be strong enough to heal ourselves completely of these diseases. And one of the things that happens when we are sick is that we are preoccupied with it, meaning that we spend a lot of our attention thinking about our illness. We don't mean to, it's just we feel bad. So our consciousness is drawn not to what we can do, not to getting well, but often to being sick. Although I do have the illnesses on, short illnesses on occasion, here or there, I will say that I never allow, or try never, to allow my illnesses to get the best of me. In the first place, I can do a lot to heal myself, sometimes even completely. I can expedite getting well. And most of all, I like to see what I can do in spite of my illness. In 1 month when I was confined to a wheelchair, I worked at finding out what I could do while I was in the wheelchair, not the fact that I was confined to it and therefore limited. And I was amazed at how many things that we could do. And the same thing when I moved from wheelchair to crutches, once again, was to see what I could do with crutches and on crutches to continue the normalcy of my life. So there are many things that we can do, and in today's polluted world, it's going to be not only pollution, but stress. I remember one of my own great teachers, who I've mentioned innumerable times on my shows, who spoke 15 languages. He always said that man spent millions of years evolving this delicate and intricate cerebral spinal system to destroy it in a century with stress. So stress plays an important factor, and it's also responsible for some of the illnesses that we have. And we're not talking just about illnesses that may be mental. We're talking about physical ailments of the body that are brought on by the continued stressful situations that we faced in our day-to-day living. What we want to do in this session on healing, because it was such a wondrous art in Jesus' time, and of course he really is truly known as the great healer, is that we want to understand why it worked. We want to understand that this power is in all of us, and that it is within our capability of using it. However, as we mentioned, sometimes we're so preoccupied with being ill that it is very difficult for us to concentrate and practice the art of self-healing. So in those situations, we go to people who deal in alternative medicine. And I want to introduce you to some of the things that we do use in alternative medicine. Again, these are not to take you off of your medication. They're simply to let you know that they exist. And we could spend days on just alternative medicine alone, because I spent 11 years in health and nutrition and alternative medicine. So the result is that I can go on and on, but that is not my purpose here today. My purpose is to help you to get started in the world of self-healing treatments, and to understand that these things are out there and that you can explore them if you choose to do so. So the first thing that I'm going to take up basically in healing is to give you a look at two very basic alternative medications. One of those, of course, is herbs. The other is homeopathic. And they do differ, although both originate with natural products. Herbs are in their natural state. Thus, when we take them, we don't have a reaction, an adverse reaction to them as we might with homeopathic, because it's like the food that we eat every day. I have many, many herbs. Some of them I brought down, and some of them I didn't. I think I did not bring one down that is very helpful, and that's an herb called lobelia. Lobelia in the capsule form is a marvelous tool for helping to take people off of drug addiction and alcohol addiction. It's an herb, again, I'm stumbling here for a moment, because you see, I learned about this herb from my great-grandmother who raised me, and sometimes what the herbs actually say that they do is not the total picture. And so we want to look at what the whole picture, if we possibly can, or a little bit more thoroughly. So fenugreek may be for some other purpose according to the bottle, but believe me, I've used it with many clients in helping them off of alcohol and drug abuse programs, and it's very helpful. It kind of gives you a positive outlook of life. It's a lobelia is a very grows on that little flowered plant that we normally have in our yards and grow every year. Very beautiful flowers, and of course it is the leaves themselves that's normally ground into the herb and put in capsules. We have to be a little bit careful on herbs, so I always recommend that someone get a basic book on it. Because some of these are diuretics. And we always need to know when we're taking a diuretic, because that's going to perhaps deplete some of the potassium that's in the system. And interestingly enough, stress, despondency can all be headaches, can all go with a low potassium. So we're a little bit careful when when we're dealing with something which might be a diuretic. So it's wiser to know enough about your herbs, which are stimulants, which are diuretics, and so on. So get you a simple little book. Along with lobelia, which I've used, always use, in any case of trying to get someone off of drug addiction, or even to raise them out of depression in an herbal context. Along comes fenugreek. Fenugreek to me is a marvelous herb, and the reason that I like it is you can take it almost forever without any interference of the body. It's not a stimulant, it's not a diuretic. The body just handles fenugreek so beautifully. And more important, it's the #1 herb for helping immune deficiency. The term of vegetarian immune deficiency syndrome is something that I coined many years ago. It's different than your other immune deficiency syndrome, because vegetarian immune deficiency can be cured. It normally happens because we are thousands of years of genetic structure of eating meat, and then suddenly we find all this healthy food, and we go out. And I think we talked about this, that the food itself, when it's like sprouts and things like this, it's very high vibrational frequency, and so it breaks down rather than builds up. So we have to actually build up a tolerance to the high vibration food for that reason. Getting too much of it, when the body is ill-equipped to do so, does almost to it what getting too much sun does when we're not used to that. It begins to break down. So we start out very slowly by increasing our intake of vegetarian food to the steamed vegetables to go along with our meat dishes and things like this, and we increase that more and more, and then we add more and more raw food in. So until we get to a point of where about 1/4 of our diet is kind of raw food, salads with fresh sprouts and things like this. But anyway, with fenugreek, this helps that immune system. When we start losing this, and I have really traveled all over the world, and I've taught this course of initiation for 30 years. And it's just very common for me to find people with vegetarian immune deficiency who have not taken enough protein to protect themselves from the breakdown of the immune system. And of course, once that happens, they begin to get virus after virus, and some call it purification, but my friends, it is not. It just means that the immune system is weakened. And we can always tell this by just a little vagueness, in the throat, kind of like a sore throat, but not a sore throat. We think we're coming down with something, only we don't come down with something. And it just kind of goes on. And we're come in contact with anyone with any type of contagion, whether it is a contagious disease or whether it's a virus or cold or anything like that. And we get it almost instantaneously. So we have to go to that work of building up the immune system again. This is done, of course, by increasing the protein, by taking fenugreek. And the normal thing when we're dealing with an herb like fenugreek is we take 2 every 4 hours during the daytime, not at night. And 6 a day is going to do a great deal to protect you from catching viruses, because the thing is, once the immune system is weakened and you start catching virus, every one you get is going to weaken the immune system some more. So therefore it's very essential and important that we try to do what we can to keep from getting the viruses. Another one of the herbs, and since we're getting into, sometimes get into flu seasons, that's terribly important. This is peppermint. We don't think of this as being important, but you know, you start taking 2 peppermint at the first symptom, the first flu symptom, and if you take it every 4 hours for about 4 doses during the day and early evening, you may not even come down with it. Certainly, the flu is lessened. It's not going to do you much good to drink peppermint tea other than it's soothing, because you don't get enough of the substance in you in order to help to cure the problem. So here's a simple little thing called peppermint in capsules, 2 every 4 hours, and you can possibly defeat the flu completely, or certainly lessen its time and be much more comfortable. Flu takes care of the nauseation, it takes care of the stiff muscles, and it takes care of the headache, not counting the symptoms of the flu themselves. And believe me, I've done herbs and homeopathic for many years, and I can assure you that I have used these myself in the very situations that we're talking about. This is a simple little thing that the body handles, of course, very well. It's dandelion. It's very difficult for us to get dandelion greens, and yet dandelions themselves are probably the #1 food for having complete vitamin and mineral content. It rates higher than collard greens or kale, and of course collard greens and kales are way up on the chart, kale being of course naturally #1 and what most people prefer to eat. And it's difficult to go out and get the dandelions and steam them and eat them, and of course the dandelion greens have to be very young and in order to be very tender. But here's a dandelion in the capsule, and 2 of these every 4 hours is going to add a marvelous supplement in both vitamins and minerals to the food that you eat every day, or at least 3 times a day, 2 capsules 3 times a day. And another one I didn't bring down is something that grows here in the state of Washington very prolifically, and we normally think of it as in terms of kind of a weed. And this weed, we go and we try to destroy it. But in reality, it cures more diseases than any other disease, and that's horsetail. Every place you look in Washington, we're subject to horsetail, dried and consumed in capsules, 2 every 4 hours. Again, it's an herb that is we have to watch out for a little bit because it's a diuretic. So that means to drink plenty of water and things like that at the time that we're taking that herb. But it's a wonderful blood cleanser, and it cures more diseases. I have a standard statement: when in doubt, give them horsetail, because it's bound to do something, from the purification of the blood to wounds to everything else, to healing faster. I could go on and on with the list. It's absolutely amazing. So there are many, many, many other herbs, though, like burdock, which is right up there with horsetail, almost second in curing more diseases, such a variety of diseases. And these things grow natural, so our body handles them more naturally because we eat Homeopathic is not handled quite as easily because homeopathic is refined. And I'm going to introduce you to the art of homeopathic. We are going to go to spiritual healing and learn how to heal ourselves spiritually. But these are, I have a variety, and I have not brought them all down. One should never be without Onica. In any time the body is traumatized, Onica is just a way of life. I usually go low potency because if we're in a serious situation, like for instance an accident, or we've just had major dental work done, then we're going to be on other medication. And when we're using homeopathy, it has a tendency to be antidoted by outside medication, at least the higher potencies do. So this is a 30X Onica, but it takes away the impact of the trauma that the body goes through. The body goes through a trauma when it's in an accident. It goes through a trauma when it has dental work. It goes through a trauma when it has an operation. And Onica immediately, just as soon as possible, just simply does so much to alleviate the trauma to the body so that the body heals so much faster. And we have to realize that God created a body that does heal itself. So we have possessed this healing power since the beginning of time. We just haven't realized it. And when we're trying to heal ourselves or to heal someone else, we're merely bringing to the conscious surface something which has already existed. If we didn't have this healing power in us all the time, then the body wouldn't heal itself. When we get a cut, the cut heals itself. When someone performs surgery, in time, the body gets over its trauma and takes care of it and heals, and leaving some scar tissue, yes. But it heals, it gets well. And doctors, as well as anyone else, has to count on the fact that the body does heal itself. So since we've always had this healing power, what we're doing with homeopathic is to stimulate it. Homeopathic is nature's product. It's exactly like the herbs. We can take, for instance, fenugreek, and I've done this. We can take fenugreek and we can move it from the first power, this basic power of its natural state as we take it here in the herbal form, and through a distillation process of 6 to 7 months, we can change this into 10 to the 1,000th power. And how this is done is that by taking the test tube, we put in some actual fenugreek. Usually when working with creating the homeopathic remedies themselves, it is usually better if you can get the fresh leaves rather than the dry herb to work. So we put the fresh leaf of the fenugreek in with about 15 drops of alcohol. And then we let it stand for about 10 to 15 days, actually it should be about 21 days is the standard common practice. If you're doing this by hand, the easiest way is go in the store and buy the remedy, of course. And when we're looking at the homeopathic distributors or kind of the homeopathic pharmaceutical suppliers, they have special machines that do do the shaking of the remedies, and they probably can produce them into the higher power much faster than we can by hand. But we take this and we put the leaves in and we put them in with 15 drops of alcohol. We let them stand for 21 days in the test tube, and then we take the test tube and we shake it. And we shake it very, very thoroughly. Then we're going to take 15 drops of the alcohol out of that test tube and put it into another test tube. And again, we will add to that 10 to 12 drops of additional alcohol. And each time we do this and repeat the process, we're moving the actual herb form from that first power into higher and higher power. And if you wonder how this is working, it's because if you put alcohol on a cut or an infection, the alcohol actually draws the infection out. Let's say it's an infection on your hand. It's actually going to draw the infection out of your hand. It's going to draw on this. This is what it does in the basic part of the homeopathic remedy, is that it's going to draw the essence out of the leaves. And if you have any doubt of this, you really should try it. The alcohol, by the way, doesn't work with that which a person usually drinks to get inebriated. You really need 100 proof alcohol, or at least 98% proof, in order to make this a workable situation. But by actually moving fenugreek, which has, you can open the bottle of fenugreek itself in its natural state, and it has a slight fragrance, not an unpleasant one, but a very slight, but it is not a beautiful fragrance. And taking the fenugreek leaf and then moving it into the higher power, by the time we got into about a 30x, or 30 in the 10th power, or 30C, 30 in the 100th power, amazingly enough, the fragrance was exquisitely beautiful, and showing us that essence, as it is refined and purified, is always there in the alcohol. So then we take a kind of a basic pellet here, kind of like a sugar pellet, and we place about drops into this, and then that forms what we call the remedy. And these pellets are, and if I can probably open one out here. I don't know whether we can, that was not open yet. If I can find one that's open would be helpful. Here's one I think maybe is open. If I can, I don't know whether he can get a close-up of those or not, but this is what we're trying, and this is kind of what the pellets look like. And these pellets, about 4 of them, are going to go under the tongue, and they taste good. So it's not going to be like a lot of medicine that you get. And they go under the tongue, and that's because they're absorbed instantaneously. And of course, normally you'd not put a remedy in your hand like that. You would put the remedy in the little cap and then put it under the tongue, and not eat or drink anything for about 30 minutes afterwards, because that's going to be absorbed immediately into the bloodstream, and that's what makes it so tremendously effective. Well, Anika was one for traumas, but when we have people with mental conditions, lycopodium is just, this is a remedy here, and a very low potency one. Lycopodium is really very good for helping mental state, people who are in depressions. Right second to it is nature myrrh. We have for pain, belladonna. Belladonna is an old country one, and they used to rub a little bit of belladonna onto babies when they were teething to ease their pain. Well, belladonna is also good in the homeopathic remedy, and we can get such things as valerian. But normally valerian I give to or recommend to clients that I have. I've normally recommended that it's in the herbal form rather than in the homeopathic. The reaction in a homeopathic remedy is sometimes different than the herbal form. In the herbal form, I usually recommend a half hour before bedtime to help clean out the intestines of parasites, and at the same time you get a good night's sleep. It smells terrible, but nonetheless, in a capsule you're not going to taste it. Taking it in a homeopathic remedy, I find that it's very difficult to sleep with it. I get a little bit more active, so I don't normally want that at night. So I'm more inclined to recommend valerian in the herbal form. Anyway, there are homeopathic repertoire, boric, B-O-E-R-C-K-E, a very basic manual that you can pick up to learn a little bit about the homeopathic, to have it on hand in the event you get ill, and you're going to find it now in almost every health food store and almost every grocery store. Places here in Seattle like Central Market, Larry's Market, Whole Foods, tremendous homeopathic section, because homeopathic is really here to stay. And in Europe, I was amazed when I got off of the train to find right at the train station what would be equal to a pharmacy. In other words, we go into a pharmacy to get our prescriptions filled and other items. Right there, when I was traveling in Europe, you get off of the train and there would be a homeopathic place there with nothing but homeopathic remedies. The situation with homeopathic is a recommendation that you don't go higher potency. Higher doesn't always mean that you're going to get better that much faster. And the reason for the higher potency, often we antidote, and that may sound strange, but you see, we take something to help us, and we might take a high potency, and that potency that we take might be allergic to to coffee. So we drink a cup of coffee, and the homeopathic remedy says, now I've got to go and fight the coffee because it's interfering with the work that I'm doing. And so it goes off to fight the coffee, and therefore causes an aggravation. And so you're better to look toward low potency, nothing higher ever than a 30C. Preferably if you're a beginner and you want to give it a little try, let me recommend nothing past a 30X until you get more used to it. The homeopathic remedies also come in tinctures, and I have here one that to me is very invaluable for when you have, say, an abscess or something like this, because this is a sulfur. And this is a simple 30X in alcoholic tincture form to go in on, say, a toothache or something like that. So, and tinctures can also, they should be put under the tongue also. And like for dental pains, I brought one down because for dental pains, this is really very good. This is Hypericum, and really helps. So there's many of the tinctures. If you don't want to take the tablets, you can turn toward the tinctures. And sulfur, of course, because of the virus seasons that we normally run into every winter from Thanksgiving. And if you wonder why, it's because of all this junk we eat. We start at Halloween time. The kids get a lot of candy. They get viruses. They go to school. They give it to their parents give it at work, and then just about the time we're getting over the run from Halloween, we're suddenly stuck in Thanksgiving. And around goes the viruses again. We get off in our first cold weather. We're not equipped for it because we don't eat right, and all the pies and cakes and everything. Then we don't really ever have any time between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And Christmas, we're right back into, in fact, all the way through the holiday season, rich foods, rich drinks, and so we are not going to get over, and do not get over this, until after spring house cleaning. Just about the time we get over New Year's and the last of the partying, then of course spring comes, and spring is house cleaning time, meaning it also cleans up the body as the body just naturally starts to regenerate itself. And so there we go again, our last and final rounds of viruses for a few months. And we always say thank heavens when that is over. And not only are we able to get the homeopathic in tablet form or in tincture form, but we also can get it in salves. I have this in a very large size because it wards off nerve pain. And it's also, Hypericum is very good for itching skin condition, because as it wards off the pain, it also, many of the dermatitis, things that happen, like neurodermatitis happens, is kind of an itching at the end of the nerves. A bit of this rubbed in is going to quiet down the sensation of the itching tremendously. I cannot say it's going to correct the dermatitis. I am just simply saying it makes you much more comfortable, because this is a nerve-ending thing. We also have Rudigraf, which is fantastic for sore feet, sore muscles. And when I buy Rudigraf, I also get it in the 1 pound size, because it's just so good for sore muscles. And I have it here in the small size, because if a person doesn't want to get into the larger size, you can usually get the homeopathic in these small sizes here. But that's the two choices that you have for alternative medicine that you can put into your household and take care of some of your basic needs. Do not mix your remedies. Take one for the condition that you have. Remember, buy a book first. Don't go by feel, and don't. You're helped a bit by looking at the labels. The labels are going to tell you at least basically one symptom that it's good for on these remedies. They're going to tell you that arnica is trauma, bruises, muscles. It's going to tell you belladonna is for cold, flus, and fever. Of course, it's also to help pain, but it makes you feel more comfortable when you have colds and flus. So these are going to tell you a little bit about some of the uses that you can. And as a beginner, may I recommend that you kind of follow what the labels say and get yourself a book. So you can do this either with herbs or otherwise. And that's all I wanted to bring up when it comes to some of the things that we can use in alternative medicine, that we can have in our medicine cabinet to help us and our family through some of the basic illnesses that we get, the standard illnesses like colds and viruses and flus and things like this. In any serious condition, by all means, see your physician. See him anyway, but this will always help you to get better. And we can do a lot for ourselves with the cost of prescriptions, the cost of medical aid today, the hospitalization. We can do so much, and if we add some knowledge of basic herbs and or homeopathic to our repertoire, we then have the tools to help with our natural healing. What we want to focus on most today is that ability and that power that heals us. So I'm going to go to the board so that I can introduce you to the basic foundation of power. And we'll start there as I once again roll this up and put it away. We put it out every week because it looks pretty and it makes a nice set. And that's what we're doing on the Nautilus, is we're trying to live our life on Earth in such a manner that we can purify not just the body, but that we will purify the mind and the soul, and that in doing so we can rise in higher consciousness and more unity with that tremendous and wondrous power that dwells in us. I'm going to kind of start at the bottom of the chart here because it is here that we manifest our illnesses. It's in the physical body. Beyond that, we manifest in the mental. Some of the illnesses that we have begin in the mental state and come down into the physical. And there are causes for our mental and physical, such things as feelings and emotions are going to affect us, both in mental and in physical, and going to certainly increase the potentiality of being vulnerable to different diseases. However, there is but one power. As there is one law, and if I were to go this way, capital L-A-W, we have one law. That law is the forward movement of the divine plan. And we say, but how can a forward movement of a divine plan be a law? That we can take every law that has originated in the world today and we can trace it back to that one basic law. And that is because the law is do I want to call it, I think, a fixed law. God built this universe within him. He stays in that perfect state of concentration and creation. And this causes the forward movement. Nothing can deviate so terribly far from that. And the reason, of course, that it can't is because it's always in everything that lives in the universe. So therefore, it's always flowing through us. That's why today we climb a mountain. Tomorrow we want to climb a higher one. There's something inside of us that always wants to take ourselves to a challenging step beyond what we have just accomplished. And that is that power of God in His plan moving us toward the perfection that is predestined for us. So since His plan was predestined, and it is in the process of becoming, it is therefore the law which governs everything in the universe of the stars. So we have one power, and you probably be very surprised at this, and I may have mentioned it in other things. Sorry, I have to reach here a little bit. We have but one dream. Every one of us is dreaming the same dream. We say, no, I'm not dreaming the same dream, but we are. We're dreaming the same dream in that always and constantly it's this divine plan flowing through us. And that divine plan is the prototype of the soul, which functions through its feelings and emotions. The reason it seems like we have a different dream and that we're not dreaming all the same dream is, if you remember, we had one episode on the probability of re-entry into embodiment for purpose of growth. So we have in our subconscious mind all of the memory patterns of our past since the beginning of time. So this power or law or dream is flowing through the subconscious mind, finally reaching the mental state. Then we have not only the subconscious, but in this mental state, we then have the feelings and emotions, preconceived ideas. As we come closer to this mental state of expression, we're closer and closer to what are preconceived ideas within us. So therefore, it means that our dream is going to be uniquely different. You ate pizza before you went to bed, and I did not. So I dream of being an angel or flying with the wind, and you dream of getting chased by banshees. It has to do with our physical body, our mental, our feelings, our emotions, and the deep levels of our subconscious mind. So by the time the one dream flows through all of this, it becomes a different dream, a unique dream for each of us, regardless of what it is. One thing I've liked about a dream, having seen and experienced the one dream, makes it possible to interpret everybody's dream. And I think in the biblical scripture, that when they came to resolving the importance of a dream for the king, that it was for this reason that only one person, the spiritual person, could really prophesy what was coming and interpret the dream as it was meant to be interpreted. So having seen that one dream, we can realize that and interpret anyone's dream. As we understand the one law, we could throw the law books away, and we could, everything that abides with us and around us, we can equate to that one law. We would be able to resolve everything and every problem by our relationship to that one single law. Moses did. He was the foundation of the courts. He took the elders, the 72 elders, and got them together. He dispersed the power that he bore of the people was dispersed among them, and they all began to prophesy. And it's always one of my favorite stories, because they then came to Moses, and before, anyone that prophesied, of course, was stoned. And then now they come to Moses and they say, well, so-and-so is prophesying. And Moses said, would that the Spirit of the Lord be upon you, and that you prophesy. So this law, we could actually interpret what is right and wrong by our relationship to the one law. And it's from this one law that we actually created all of our legal books. People doing interpretation, but at their level of interpretation. That is why man-made law is fallible, and why we always make laws upon laws, because of the fact that the law is fallible. Well, power is the same way. There's only one power. I don't care what we call it. We can give it many names in the world of healing, and that's where we're turning to today, is to look at this power as it relates to our world of healing. We can call it anything. but it's still one power. For me, I like to follow the way Jesus did. Jesus always spoke of that power that was within him as being the power of God. So I'm not going to call God Reiki. I'm not going to call him ethereal healing. I'm not going to give him names. I'm going to just simply allow him to be what he is, the one power that we all express in our healing artistry. Healing, self-healing and healing others can be the most exquisite and beautiful experience for the healer. The more pure that we are, and I'm not claiming to be that pure, but I have had to work in the spiritual realm for so long. I have worked, not had to, but by choice, that the concentration, the capability of using the powers is stronger because of the years. I've been 30 years and using the powers for 30 years. So my concentration has become more focused than most people. And because of this, I can bend my will to the will of that great power that is all around us and in us until I dissolve. And in dissolving to where only the power exists is where the miracle healings come. As long as we're aware of ourself, then ourself is a measure of interference with the healing process. Because that power that is pure is, of course, that one power. And we do not have diseases when we are without embodiment. So this tells us that if we are without embodiment and we do not have diseases, then what is causing the disease in the human world? It has to be caused by things that we are going through, things that we eat, and exposure to the traumas and accidents and things of the human world. So our ailments, disease, means a disruption or interruption with that pure power that is flowing through us. I don't know how our bodies manages to get around our human minds and still heal itself in spite of all the things that we eat and all the things that we do, but it does. It still is capable of healing itself. So we want to learn to use that power, and I refer to it as God, because God is a real relationship for man, for mankind. He is real. He is tangible, not tangible in solidarity like a physical human, but he is tangible in essence. And our relationship, and we've talked about this in this class of initiation, our relationship with him makes it so that everything is there for us, because that part of him that is in us can affect the whole hand. And so therefore, it's almost like he says, I will bring this situation about for my beloved, whoever the beloved may be. And so the next thing you know, these things that we've wished for or the things that we've desired are suddenly there. Sometimes we learn that it was wrong to desire them or wrong to wish for them. But when we serve him, he is so good to us. He gives us so many perks, if we dare call it that. He gives us so many perks that we would never have dreamed possible. Like we talked about when I put my tent up, and I would just look up and say, Father, I don't want to interfere with your weather, but it's raining and I have to put my tent. Could you stop just while I put it up? He always stopped. The rain always stopped. I do not remember one exception. And then when I threw, I'd look up, I'd say, I'm finished now. And the rains would pour down. That part, just because we love him, and if we love him enough, that part in us is going to relate to the whole God of the universe, of the stars. And he's going to bring us an understanding of the universe, an understanding that goes beyond science and philosophy and all religions. Because if there's only one law and one power and one dream, then there's only one religion. The fact that we've dissected this and we have gone by different interpretations of it and given our names different religions, different denominations, doesn't mean that there are different religions. There are not. There is but one single religion. And when we're all moving toward oneness with God, we won't have to worry about the diversification between us. But until that time comes, alas, we're going to fight and squabble over who's right and who's wrong and which religion is the best and everything else that just normally goes with it. But anyway, religion, philosophy, there's only one philosophy. It's all based upon the one power, the one law. There's only one science. In fact, science, philosophy, and religion are all the same thing. We've given them names, so that makes them separate too. Well, we're not that mature yet as a human race for us to completely come to overcome the tendencies we have to fight and squabble amongst each other. But we're working in that direction, and I know, because I saw the fruition and fulfillment of His divine plan, that we as a human race, we're going to make it. And we're pretty noble. We're pretty great, and we've come a long way in our struggle. So now we want to learn to use this great power, and that's what we're going to take up in our next week study, is to use that power that is in us and to learn to heal ourselves spiritually. And we say spiritually, that is by being able to meld our consciousness into His consciousness. And His consciousness is the millions of galaxies. And imagine being a part of that kind of power. Oh my, the things that He has made possible. I spent some time with a woman who was dying, and why didn't I heal her? Well, it's pretty hard to heal someone when it's interfered with a lot of medication and chemotherapy and things like this. And I would never take that away from someone because in doing so I would interfere with medical science. And I would want that person to feel they had done everything to live. But it's very hard to heal when the next moment they're going out and get chemotherapy, which literally poisons them, you see. So, but I was with her in those final days, the very last days of which she lived, and I was able to take her consciousness and her soul and work with her in the kingdom of God, to come into powerful enough to take this soul and to have it experience God. I remember we were on this path and she kept wanting to turn around and go back, and I said, you know, you cannot hang on forever. You're going to have to release from life. You don't want to continue suffering. And so I just sat there and I waited for her. And then I remember when this joy and this great light came to her soul, and she decided that, yes, she could go. And what a relief. And a short time thereafter, of course, she did leave the body. But to be able to not only do that, but to experience with a dying person their most intimate moments as they struggle for life, I think that is the greatest honor and the greatest privilege that a person can ever experience. And after we have talked about our healing, we are certainly going to take a look at life after death and some of the things that we can do and how we should react when we live around someone who is dying. But for now, we need those last little minute lessons. If we remember that He said that He says there, blessed are they that mourn. Remember, we talked about this last time, that we should mourn because we are separated from Him, and that we hunger, that we should continue to search for truth regardless of everything, that we should be merciful to all people, that we should love God and follow Jesus' 2 commandments, to first love God and then love each other, and to work diligently to bring peace and to be peaceful with all mankind. Have a wonderful week, and may God walk with you. I want to thank you for joining us on this special journey aboard the Nautilus, which has taken us from Earth to heaven. If you have any questions or wish to be on our mailing list, please call area code 206-362-4134. Area code 206-362-4134. Or join us on our website, Mystery School, one word, mysteryschool.org. The God in me bows to the God in you, and may heaven walk with you all week.